You could isolate individual numbers, but they're often, what they mean is related to the numbers that are before or after them in just the counting sequence, or if they appear in sequence in a text somewhere, then it has to do with their order there. But I think if we're going to start, let's start with number 1. Don't you think? That's a pretty good universal number. What can this number, man, that's a nice 3D. I want to just hold that. What can a number mean? What's it like to have an inner meaning as a number? Swedenborg describes this in True Christianity, number 8. Oh yeah, if you want to download this book for free, click it, free ebook, free PDF. You can read more about this or any of the other stuff that we talk about here. The recognition that God exists and that there is one God flows universally from God into human souls. The notion that there is one God flows into our souls from God because everything that is divine as a whole and in every detail is God. And because everything that is divine is integrated into a unity, it cannot help but inspire in us the idea of one God. This idea grows ever stronger as God lifts us into the light of heaven. In angelic light, the angels cannot force themselves to say gods. In fact, every phrase of their speech ends rhythmically on a single beat, a phenomenon that arises from no other cause than the notion inflowing into their souls that there is one God. And when Swedenborg talks about you can't say gods, there really is stuff like that in the spiritual world, that the spiritual world is based on thoughts and feelings. I mean, those are the primary drivers of action there. So there's things like you can't say a certain thing in a certain area because that area is defined by a particular state of mind, and what you're trying to do is put something out it's opposite to that. So it's like here, trying to force something in when the air pressure is too great or something like that. So there is no way to say gods in particular corners of the spiritual world, according to Swedenborg. So that's one meaning of one. It's a symbol of the universal, of the one God. However, also one is a number that symbolizes goodness. And the reason it symbolizes goodness or love is that love creates one thing out of many things. In essence, that's what love is. It's a joining of many into one. The more that the human race lives in love, the more that we become one. The more two partners love each other, the more they become one. The more that God and a human, the more that we let God's love in, the more we become one. So one is this symbol of love and of bringing together. So that's what you get when you get one. And that's how we play the game. Now let's move on to number 2. Swedenborg says that 2 means union or goodness. And it's union because 2, right? There's 2 things. This is the love and wisdom in God, or all the different echoes of that throughout reality. 2 means union. However, like I said, it's a fuzzy box. Numbers don't just have one meaning, they can have multiple meanings. For example, you can look at 2 as 2, or you could look at it as this. 3 minus 1, which is, 2. It's 2. So if you're thinking about 2 as the number before 3, 2 can actually be a symbol of toil and conflict, because 3, spoiler alert, 3 is this completeness. And 2 is when we're almost there. And to get to spiritual completeness, Swedenborg says, we have to go through toil and conflict on a spiritual level. So 2 can mean either of those things based on context. And the meaning of numbers changes based on context as well. So I already gave it away, but let's get to 3 here. He says that 3 means complete and perfect, and he actually goes into much more detail about 3. This is from True Christianity, number 211.
3 in the word has the spiritual meaning being complete and perfect, and also containing all aspects at once. Since the number 3 has these meanings, it comes into play in the word whenever these qualities need to be designated. For example, Isaiah went around naked and barefoot for 3 years. Jehovah called Samuel 3 times, and 3 times Samuel ran to Eli. The 3rd time, Eli understood. Jonathan told David to hide himself in the field for 3 days. Jonathan shot 3 arrows to the side of a stone. Then David bowed down 3 times before Jonathan. Elijah stretched out on the widow's son 3 times. Jesus said to Peter that Peter would deny him 3 times, Jonah was in the belly of the sea monster for 3 days and 3 nights. In Gethsemane, Jesus prayed 3 times. Jesus rose on the 3rd day. There are many other passages as well where 3s are mentioned. They are mentioned when the topic is a work that is finished and completed, since such is the meaning of that number.
So why in those stories is 3 included? Is it just a detail? Is this a descriptor? Like, well, we're going to include this detail that there were 3 things that happened here. Well, why don't you include every other detail? Like, what were the shadows like at that time of day? Why keep this number in there? Swedenborg says it's because that's an indicator of the completeness of state. And with regards to Jesus Christ, for what it's worth, he started his ministry at 30. Which is a multiple of 3, so he's got this 3, but then he finished it, he was crucified at 33, so you're even more complete. So he went from complete to ultra complete. And